Hello and welcome to NTD News Today. I'm Kevin Hogan. Let's take a look at our top stories. Florida rescue efforts back in full force, but major challenges ahead, including safety concerns about the rest of the building and a storm coming their way. Sheriffs and ICE agents are suing Biden over what they call his unlawful deportation policy. That's while a GOP representative warns there is no operational control of the border after seeing migrants pour in and board flights to other states. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland pauses all federal executions pending a review of policies. This is another change in direction from the Trump administration, which carried out the first federal executions in 17 years. And Facebook runs a test designed to block what it calls extremist content. Messages sent to some users warn that they may have seen extremist content or know someone who is an extremist. The move could raise more concerns about big tech and free speech. Challenges ahead for rescue teams in Surfside. New concerns over the structural integrity of the condo building, while officials eye a tropical storm headed for Florida. NTD's Jessica Beatty reports.
Rescue crews are back, searching through the rubble of the Florida condo collapse. They resumed Thursday night after having to stop for 15 hours over safety concerns.
And I have to tell you that our firefighters looked really excited to get back out there.
Surfside Mayor Charles Burkett said Thursday night the pause was disappointing.
It was a long 15 hours, especially when minutes and hours matter desperately.
He says if the remaining part of the building is the safety concern, they should tear it down.
I think that when there's a choice between knocking that building down or pulling people out of the rubble, I think it's an easy choice.
He said Florida's governor agrees, and they're looking into demolition companies in case it comes to that. Burkett also said he thanked President Biden for visiting the site Thursday.
And the president was very attentive. He basically, in so many words, said, listen, I'm here to tell you that you're going to get whatever you need.
Miami-Dade's mayor also thanking Biden on Twitter for visiting. And Florida's Emergency Management Director, Kevin Guthrie, says FEMA has received over $20 million to support response efforts. And Biden offered federal assistance, too.
Now that the president has included 100% for the first 30 days, we should receive an additional $4 to $5 million on that 20.5.
A new video's out, taken just minutes before the condo collapsed. It shows water gushing into the garage. USA Today reports that last fall, workers had to suspend some repairs because they might affect the stability nearby. Experts warn it's unlikely their findings identified the root cause of the collapse, which is still unknown. The death toll still at 18, with more than 140 people still missing. The next challenge is the weather. Florida officials keeping an eye on a tropical storm heading their way. Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
The founder of a rental property company is offering a free month stay to those displaced following the Champlain Towers South condo collapse. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
When Andreas King Giovannis heard that a condominium building had collapsed, he knew from experience that disaster would lead to displacement. The 31-year-old New York native was living with his family near the World Trade Center on September 11th, 2001.
We were in our new apartment for less than a week when that happened. We couldn't go back for about a month. So I was on, friends' sofas, hotel rooms. It was a very disjointed way to live.
In the aftermath of the condo collapse, the rental property CEO called his 165 staff members to a meeting. He announced that Sextant Stays would offer a month of rent-free housing to survivors and their families.
A lot of people, particularly survivors, they just don't have anywhere to go. They need to get in touch with a realtor. They need to save up 3 months of rent. They need to make insurance claims. So we're really giving people a month to help find their footing, and we'll kind of take it from there.
King Giovannis and his team outfitted 2- and 3-bedroom apartments with beds, Wi-Fi hotspots, and artwork within 48 hours. More than a dozen individuals and other companies donated food and toiletries. Maggie Ramsey took advantage of the offer. Her 80-year-old mother, Magali Delgado, lived in the collapsed building. Ramsey said her mother was going to visit Napa Valley in California with her grandsons later this year.
She came from Cuba in '61, worked all her life, was really living her best life right now. She loved being at the beach, and she loved her 2 grandchildren. She loves her 2 grandchildren. I'm an only child.
Ramsey and her husband had been hoping for good news. But late on Thursday, the Ramsey family said Delgado's remains had been found in the rubble.
So we were planning this trip to Napa as 5. Everybody was looking forward to it. So it's sad that
18 people have been confirmed dead. Another 145 are missing. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
A Republican representative from Virginia visited the border around the time that former President Trump did. He says the U.S. has no operational control of the border. He said he saw migrants streaming in through the border and then being put on flights to other states. Representative Bob Good of Virginia visited the border. He and 19 other Republicans paid a visit around midnight. He described a stream of migrants passing through and surrendering to Border Patrol and not making an effort to avoid being caught. And he says they even sought out Border Patrol. He told Fox News, "We have no operational control, no legal control, no law enforcement control of our border." He says the U.S. is not enforcing its laws and not preventing people from coming in. He says this is a result of willful and intentional actions by the Biden administration. Roughly 700,000 migrants have attempted to cross the southern border into the U.S. this year. Good asserts the Biden administration has facilitated this. The Biden administration did not immediately respond to a request for comment, but DHS Secretary Mayorkas told lawmakers in March that the border is not open. Good says the most cunning and dangerous migrants are trying to avoid being caught, and he says tens of thousands of them are estimated to be coming through on a monthly basis, which he says leads to the Mexican cartels making hundreds of millions of dollars a month. What's more, a group of ICE agents and sheriffs are suing the Biden administration. In mid-February, the DHS issued guidelines on arresting and deporting illegal immigrants. Now, the lawsuit alleges that many extremely dangerous illegal immigrants who would have been deported prior to those guidelines are now not being detained. DHS didn't respond to a request for comment by airtime. Afghan forces stood guard outside Bagram Air Base on Friday as American troops departed. It has served as the main base of operations for American forces in Afghanistan since after the September 11th attacks. A senior U.S. security official who aims to remain anonymous told Reuters all American military personnel and members of NATO forces have left the base. There are troops who remain at another base in the Afghan capital, Kabul. But the Bagram pullout brings an effective end to the longest war in American history. The base is an hour's drive north of Kabul and was where the U.S. military coordinated its air war and provided logistical support for its entire Afghan mission. The base is being handed over to the Afghan government as its armed forces face a surging war with the Taliban. The White House released an annual report of staff salaries Thursday. They say the roster and salaries reflect the Biden administration's commitment to racial and gender equity. NTD's Colin Fredrickson has the story.
The White House published a report of staff members' salaries, including who receives the highest pay rate. A total of 22 White House staffers get the maximum yearly salary of $180,000. That includes White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, Chief of Staff Ron Klain, and controversial senior advisor Neera Tanden. Tanden achieved notoriety for posting hundreds of inflammatory and insulting tweets revealed during a failed nomination process. The Biden administration published an analysis focused on the diversity, gender, and pay of their White House staff. The administration says it's the most diverse administration in history, and it has reduced the pay gap between men and women. According to the White House, 56% of senior staff are women, including 36% who came from racially or ethnically diverse backgrounds. They say on average, men on the staff only make about 1% more than the women. Critics say the Biden administration's focus on hiring on the basis of racial and gender equity results in a quota system for the executive branch. And this comes at the expense of simply looking for the most qualified person for a job. Colin Fredrickson, NTD News.
The federal government is pausing all executions of federal death row inmates until a policy review is completed. Advocates of the death penalty say it's an important deterrent against serious crimes.
U.S. Attorney Merrick Garland issued a memo pausing all federal executions Thursday. It says the pause will last until a review of policies regarding the death penalty is complete. The memo states the Department of Justice must ensure that everyone in the federal criminal justice system is not only afforded the rights guaranteed by the Constitution and laws of the United States, but also treated fairly and humanely. That obligation has special force in capital cases. Last year, the Justice Department carried out the first federal executions in 17 years under the Trump administration. 13 death row inmates were executed between July 2020 and January 2021. In his election campaign, President Biden had promised to eliminate the death penalty. Biden's campaign website states, "Because we cannot ensure we get death penalty cases right every time, Biden will work to pass legislation to eliminate the death penalty at the federal level and incentivize states to follow the federal government's example." Charles Stimson is a senior legal fellow for the Heritage Foundation. He says the death penalty serves as a deterrent to serious crimes. He says the Supreme Court has upheld the death penalty and it's supported by a majority of Americans. According to the Death Penalty Information Center, about 50 people are waiting to be executed on federal death row. Colin Fredrickson, NTD News.
Some Facebook users are receiving alerts from the website warning them about potential exposure to extremist content. The social media giant says it's running a test to prevent extremism on the platform. NTD's Phil Zoe has more.
Recently, some social media users have seen a new kind of warning pop up on their Facebook accounts. Screenshots shared on Twitter Thursday showed a notice asking, "Are you concerned that someone you know is becoming an extremist?" Another alerted users, "You may have been exposed to harmful extremist content recently." The message adds that violent groups try to manipulate your anger and disappointment. Both provide a Get Support button leading to another Facebook page about extremism. A user wrote on Twitter, "Facebook randomly sent me this notice about extremism when I clicked over to the app. Pretty weird. The Get Support button just goes to a short article asking people not to be hateful." A Facebook spokesperson confirmed to the Epoch Times on July 1st that the company is running the warnings as a test. He says, "This test is part of our larger work to assess ways to provide resources and support to people on Facebook who may have engaged with or were exposed to extremist content or may know someone who is at risk." Republicans have accused big tech firms like Facebook, Twitter, and Microsoft of censoring and limiting conservative voices. Facebook's warning messages may trigger more fears over what some have described as the company's attempts to stifle free speech. Phil Zoe, NTD News.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi on Thursday announced 8 of her picks for the representatives who'll serve on the Select Committee to investigate the January 6th Capitol breach. One of those members is Republican Liz Cheney. NTD's Melina Wisecup has more details.
Representative Liz Cheney is the only Republican Speaker Pelosi chose to join the 13-member Select Committee.
But we're very honored and proud that she has agreed to serve on the committee.
Cheney says she's honored to serve on the committee and that Congress is obligated to investigate the incident, while again criticizing Trump. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy responded to the news Thursday.
It was shocking to me that if a person is a Republican, they get their committee assignments from the Republican conference. For somebody to accept committee assignments from Speaker Pelosi, that's unprecedented.
Though Pelosi has the final say, McCarthy will have the chance to help choose 5 more members to join the committee. Although it's unclear how he'll respond to this task, since he and most all other Republicans oppose creating the committee to begin with. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene earlier this week said she'd love to join the committee.
Sure, she should put me on the committee. That would be great. I think it was a riot.
It seems, though, that Greene's motivations for wanting to join are much different than Representative Cheney's. Greene has been a dedicated supporter of former President Trump. Meanwhile, Cheney has been a regular critic of the former president. The Wyoming Congresswoman is just one of 2 Republicans who voted to create the Select Committee. The other, Representative Adam Kinzinger, although he was not chosen by Pelosi to join the committee. Most other Republicans call the committee investigation a partisan farce.
But unless Democrats abandon their desires for a predetermined outcome, we are doing the American people a disservice. Bipartisan investigations have already taken place in the Senate, and law enforcement also continues to investigate.
But Pelosi claims that the Senate investigation was limited, which is why she says the new committee is needed. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Wisecup, NTD News.
The Boy Scouts of America on Thursday settled with lawyers representing victims of child sex abuse. According to the terms of the settlement, $850 million will be divided between around 60,000 victims. A judge still needs to approve the settlement. Insurance companies on the hook for the payments are likely to oppose it. They say they weren't included in the negotiations. The Boy Scouts of America is over 110 years old. More than 130 million young men and women have participated in its youth programs since its founding, according to their website. An attorney representing over 16,000 victims says he welcomes the settlement. The Boy Scouts organization says it's looking to move out of a bankruptcy brought on by the lawsuits later this year. The National Football League has fined the Washington football team $10 million. That's after a review of allegations of a hostile work culture. But they did not suspend team owner Dan Snyder. A lawyer started investigating the organization a year ago. She interviewed more than 150 people, including Snyder. She found the workplace demonstrated a general lack of respect toward women. The NFL said in a statement that the environment was full of bullying and intimidation, and that numerous female employees said they were sexually harassed. The league says ownership and senior management did not pay attention to addressing these issues and even engaged in some of the inappropriate behavior. Snyder said in a statement that the team made a lot of changes over the past 18 months. He admits there were problems. Snyder's wife has replaced him in day-to-day team operations. Coming up, several families who say they've suffered severe reactions to the COVID vaccine share their stories, including a mom and her 13-year-old daughter. They say they've been ignored and they're asking to be heard and studied. Richard Branson prepares to blast off into space on a test flight. He's aiming to get there before rival billionaire space entrepreneurs Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. Find out more on NTD News. Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson is facing criticism for hosting an event on adverse reactions to the COVID vaccine. He says he gave several families who say they've had a severe reaction a platform because their voices aren't being heard. Here are the details.
Senator Ron Johnson held a press conference Monday with 5 families who say they suffered serious adverse reactions after receiving the COVID-19 vaccine. Johnson emphasized that those who've had severe adverse reactions make up only a small percent, but he said even that small portion deserves a voice.
People that are trying to get answers are having a hard time getting their truths communicated without being vilified, without being ridiculed, without being censored. And I think that's the general experience of the people in this group that are going to be talking to you today.
All of the speakers said the same thing. They were, and are still, pro-vaccine. Stephanie DeGaray, a mom of 3 from Ohio, said her children volunteered in a clinical trial for the Pfizer vaccine at the end of 2020. She said they did this to help the country open back up. But after receiving the second dose, DeGaray says her then 12-year-old daughter Maddie immediately began experiencing pain.
And over the next 24 hours, she developed severe abdominal and chest pain. And the way she described the chest pain, and I quote, "It feels like my heart is being ripped out through my neck." She had painful electrical shocks down her neck and spine that forced her to walk hunched over.
DeGaray detailed the progression of Maddie's numerous symptoms, which ultimately led to her daughter being put on a feeding tube and needing to use a wheelchair. DeGaray says doctors initially attributed the vaccine to Maddie's condition, but later denied it as the cause. DeGaray also says neither the vaccine company nor health authorities were studying Maddie's adverse reactions.
Over the past 5 months, Maddie has been to the ER 9 times and has been hospitalized 3 times for a total of 2 months in the hospital. What I want to ask, Maddie volunteered for the Pfizer trial. Why? Why aren't they researching her to figure out why this happened? So other people don't have to go through this. Instead, they're just saying it's mental. If anybody's mental, to me. So today our journey as parents to help our daughter Maddie continues. All we want is for Maddie to be seen, heard, and believed because she has not been.
Everyone in the group had the same request.
We are part of the full picture. Please do not erase us. Please do not make us invisible.
They're asking for their conditions to be researched so that solutions can be found, and so more people don't have to experience what they've gone through.
State jails are using benefits like conjugal visits as a way to urge more prisoners to get vaccinated for the CCP virus. State prison authorities lament the low vaccination rate in New York's prisons. The head of state prisons sent out a memo saying only 45% of incarcerated felons have gotten vaccinated, compared with 70% of the general public. He wrote that even prisons in other states have higher vaccination rates than in New York. The memo says that only vaccinated individuals will be able to participate in the prison system's program that offers conjugal visits. It's where a prisoner and a significant other can have 2 or 3 days together in a trailer. There are other requirements to join the program as well. When you sit back and watch the 4th of July fireworks this weekend, give a thought to the artists who use the sky as their canvas and paint in fire and light. You may also get a chance to see other artists in your city, living historians, who bring our history back to life and remind us what we are really celebrating on Independence Day. NTD's Kay Rubicek has the story.
Boom, wait a second. Boom, wait a second. Boom, 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 boom. Almost everything here is paper, glue, and black powder.
Every year it gets bigger and bigger, and I have something at stake here just like everybody else.
It gives you a sense of how much somebody must have wanted to do something.
Well, better have a damn good reason.
That's a lot more than a document, isn't it?
It's a culture of liberty and freedom. Anybody's free to swing their fist, but they're not at liberty to hit my nose.
Can't you just cut it off with a knee?
No, 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 no.
Now it should feel like a hug.
So what could go wrong?
Oh, yeah, almost everything. That is known as biting the bullet.
This is the lock, and this is the stock, and this is the barrel. Nobody's perfect, but people have done great things.
Life was a lesson.
Life was a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
July 4th, Independence Day. Behind the hot dogs and the fireworks, so much creativity goes into the celebrations that we get to sit back and enjoy. So to give you a sneak peek into some of that energy and expertise, we spoke to people across the country to show you some of the amazing ways that Americans celebrate life, liberty, and a powerful history.
I want art. Fireworks are magic. Like when you see them up in the sky and you don't understand any way, shape, or form they're made, it's magic. It's momentary, it's unexplainable. You've got 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then all three of these go, whoa, they all go spinning.
We call ourselves living historians because we don't just study it, we do it.
I live in an 18th century house. You want to come sit?
Thank you.
It's lovely. It really has a feel of time when you walk through it. And so I live that every day, but I don't cook like that.
Oh, that was my next question. You cooking?
I've done colonial dinners for family and friends.
I want people to understand that when the Marbleheaders were here, this was a major sacrifice, and they didn't desert.
They didn't desert.
They did not desert.
That is a ball that is given to a man so that his teeth don't crack while I perform the next set of procedures. That is known as biting the bullet.
Tune in to Life and Times every week on NTD television.
Americans are set to hit the roads and the skies as they travel for the July 4th weekend, and a lot of people are traveling. Friday is expected to be the busiest day of travel at Chicago's O'Hare and Midway International Airports since the beginning of the pandemic. That's according to the Chicago Department of Aviation. The department says upwards of 220,000 passengers are expected to pass through O'Hare Friday. Add that to the 41,000 passengers expected at Midway Airport the same day. It's all part of a massive increase in travel compared to last year. Between Thursday and next Tuesday, O'Hare is expected to see an increase in travelers of 240% over the same period in 2020. Entrepreneur Richard Branson is set to travel to the edge of space on Virgin Galactic's test flight on July 11th, beating out another billionaire with astronaut aspirations, Jeff Bezos.
There's a new favorite to win the race for first billionaire in space. Virgin Galactic announced Thursday that founder Richard Branson would be blasting off aboard its test flight on July 11th. That's 9 days ahead of Branson's big competition, Amazon's Jeff Bezos and his rival space tourism venture Blue Origin. It's the 4th crewed mission by Virgin Galactic, but the first to carry a full crew, including Branson, 2 pilots, and 3 other specialists. The launch will take them to the edge of space. Beyond the Earth's atmosphere, passengers will be able to experience a few minutes of weightlessness. A successful flight would mark a key milestone for an ambitious new industry hoping to go mainstream. In a statement, Branson said that private commercial spaceflight is, quote, set to open space to humankind and change the world for good. After 2 more test flights, Virgin says it will throw open the hatch to welcome tourists in 2022. The billionaire race to space also includes SpaceX chief executive Elon Musk. Musk has not set a date for his spaceflight.
Coming up, San Franciscans might have had enough. A recent poll conducted in San Francisco shows roughly 80% of those polled said addressing homelessness is a top priority, and about 76% of the respondents want more police in high-crime neighborhoods. And firefighter recruits in California start training in the woodlands to fight wildfires. We take you there to see them in action. All that and more in just a minute.
If you're like most of us, you're probably getting fed up with the nonsense that's going on in the banking system. Did you know that top U.S. banks have recently amended their depositor terms and conditions to include the words bank failure and what's required of you in 24 hours if, or should I say when, it happens? Don't get blindsided by your bank. Call GSI Exchange today to pick up your complimentary copy of the Bank Failure Survival Guide at 866-424-2382. We'll also send you the required format to file with your bank within 24 hours of their failure, which is now required by the top banks to avoid freezing of your funds. Yes, the top banks can now freeze your money. The world is in a strange place, and banks are constantly changing the rules. So stay on top of the current events that really matter by calling GSI Exchange and requesting your free guide at 866-424-2382.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm going to pass the savings directly on to you. For example, you get my 6-piece towel sets, regular $109.99, now only $44.98, or MyPillow dog beds for as low as $19.99 with your promo code.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
It's official. California Governor Gavin Newsom will face a recall election on September 14th. 1.7 million of the 2.1 million signatures on the recall petition were certified by the Secretary of State Thursday. That's enough to force the recall vote for Governor Newsom, making this only the second election of its kind in California history. In 2003, Governor Gray Davis was successfully recalled from office and was replaced by Arnold Schwarzenegger. A number of challengers have already announced plans to seek the office. Voters will first decide whether to keep Newsom. If enough vote to remove him, the candidate who receives the most votes during the recall will become the next governor. A new poll shows San Francisco residents feel that quality of life is decreasing. They say crime and homelessness have increased in the past year, and they would like to see more police officers on duty. NTD's Jason Blair has more.
The San Francisco Chamber of Commerce recently released the results of a new poll among the city's voters, and they're not happy. The poll was conducted in May. 71% say the quality of life in San Francisco has worsened in the past few years. 88% say homelessness and street behavior has also worsened in the past few years. 71% say it has gotten much worse. 76% support increasing police numbers in high crime areas, with 64% in support of increasing the numbers in busy areas. 5% say they are concerned about the pandemic and COVID-19. 44% say they are likely to move out in the next few years. Out of the 44%, 47% cite the cost of living and decreased quality of life as the main reason. This information seems to coincide with recent police reports of increased crime like car break-ins in the city. For instance, data released in May from the SFPD shows that theft from car break-ins has increased 105% citywide. In one particular tourist area, it went up 753% since May of 2020. San Francisco Mayor London Breed recently stated that in her new budget, she is calling to increase funding to the police with a plan to bring in 200 new officers. She also says in her future budget she wants to increase overtime, which according to her office would be needed to raise foot patrol numbers. Jason Blair, NTD News, San Francisco.
Bessemer Trust is a wealth management firm that had been tapped as co-conservator of Britney Spears' estate. On Thursday, it asked a Los Angeles court to withdraw from the case. That was after the pop superstar testified, saying that she opposed the arrangement. A wealth management firm said Thursday it wants out of Britney Spears' conservatorship case. Bessemer Trust asked an LA court to withdraw as co-conservator of Spears' estate alongside her father, Jamie Spears. It follows her testimony last week in court where Spears called the legal arrangement put in place since 2008 abusive. The financial firm said it had not taken any steps regarding Spears' assets of around $60 million or received any fees because it was awaiting additional court documents that authorized it to act. The conservatorship has drawn vocal opposition from fans with the hashtag #FreeBritney, starting a movement on social media. Jamie Spears was appointed as a conservator of his daughter's affairs in 2008 after she was hospitalized for psychiatric treatment. California is prone to wildfires, especially during summer. On Thursday, firefighter recruits began their first of 2 days of wildfire training sessions. NTD's David Lamb was there on the training ground.
We're at a county park, and as you can see, firefighters are demonstrating a live fire exercise, and some of them may be holding a drip torch, which is a combination of diesel and gasoline to help them control the fire.
While the park is closed, recruits were getting familiar with tools, equipment, and wildland firefighting tactics.
The state of California right now, we'll probably most definitely be called for mutual aid this summer, and so this is good training for them in preparation for that as well.
And one benefit of burning this land is that it helps remove non-native invasive species of plants. With about 50 personnel on site, and half of them Academy members, some are coming face-to-face with a wildland fire for the first time.
To get us prepared for the summertime. But it's very different for them. Different things to be wary of, different techniques in firefighting. As you can see, completely different personal protective equipment as well.
Firefighters go through this type of controlled training as well as structural fire training, which involves houses and buildings. One of the spokespersons said they had an unprecedented amount of firework-related incidents in 2020.
And that really stretched our resources to the max. We were flooded with 911 calls, and every fire station was out in the field responding to calls.
She said one firework is all it takes to start a fire, and a $1,000 fine.
In light of the 4th of July weekend, the local fire department says even though it may be exciting to see fireworks, they urge people to go to professional displays of fireworks instead of attending illegal ones. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
Just ahead, a new report on China's influence over pandemic decisions in the free world. It suggests that Beijing pressured several European countries to impose nationwide lockdowns. And a man in New York filmed a group of Chinese women dancing to communist propaganda music, but he was surprised to find out that Chinese state media published his video without permission. That and more here on NTD News. A reporter questioned the State Department about reports that say the Chinese Communist regime has constructed over 100 new nuclear missile launch silos.
This buildup, it is concerning. It raises questions about the PRC's intent, and for us, it reinforces the importance of pursuing practical measures to reduce nuclear risks. These advances, again, to our minds, highlight why it's in everyone's interest that nuclear powers talk to one another directly about reducing nuclear dangers and avoiding miscalculations.
Price says the Chinese regime's nuclear buildup is more difficult for it to hide, and it appeared to be diverging from decades of nuclear strategy based around minimal deterrence. He says Beijing should engage with the U.S. or otherwise risk an arms race or heighten tensions. Price says that engagement with the Chinese regime would take the same form as President Biden's engagement with Russia and President Putin. Price calls it strategic stability. A recent report says the Chinese Communist Party tried to influence Western countries during the pandemic. It says the regime encouraged nationwide lockdowns in its international diplomacy. NTD correspondent David Vives has the details.
European countries are copying China's methods with regard to managing the CCP virus, also known as coronavirus. This is the conclusion of a report released on June 21st, which details the reactions of several governments over the past year.
The Chinese communist regime said it found the solution to the pandemic, and from this point started very aggressive diplomacy against other countries, saying they should copy it. That's where I started this study.
When the CCP virus emerged in 2020, European countries had various solutions in mind. For example, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson said to let the virus circulate as a way to achieve herd immunity. In France, a government report showed Taiwan's strategies to control the CCP virus delivered excellent results, including low death tolls. However, both countries choose to go for a nationwide lockdown. According to Newsom, this has to do with pressure from the Chinese Communist Party.
Nationwide lockdowns extended the duration of the crisis and complicated herd immunity, and this happened under the influence of Chinese diplomacy.
The report says the UK, France, Sweden and Italy all went through a similar pressure campaign. For example, in the UK, Boris Johnson's Twitter account was prey to hundreds of messages saying he was leading the country to genocide. Many of those messages came from accounts that did not exist before the Prime Minister said he would let the virus circulate. At the same time, the Imperial College, which has strong ties to China, was the first university to ask for total lockdown. In Italy, some hashtags saying "Thanks China" or "Grazie Cina" went viral in March 2020. But the report says at least a third of these hashtags came from bots. This happened at a time when China sent ambassadors to Italy to encourage the authorities to impose a national lockdown.
There were hundreds of thousands of messages on Twitter that came from bots, just like the 50 Cent Army in China. Those were supporting the CCP's propaganda in European countries.
3.9 billion people have been under lockdown at some time since the spread of the CCP virus. Reporting by David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Hong Kong police are arresting yet another famed pro-democracy protester, this time for waving a Union Jack on the Chinese Communist Party's anniversary. NTD's Tiffany Meyer brings us more of the details.
Hong Kong police are arresting a noted protester, Alexandra Wong, more commonly known as Grandma Wong, again. That's after she waved a Union Jack in the city on Thursday. From the police car, she made a famous hand gesture. It represents one of the most well-known protest slogans, 5 demands, not one less. They refer to Hong Kong's demands when they protested against the extradition bill in 2019. Wong became a familiar face at the protests. Police detained her in August of 2019 and kept her in custody for 14 months in China. She returned to Hong Kong October last year. July 1st marks not only the 24th anniversary of the city's handover to the Chinese regime, but also the first anniversary since Beijing imposed the wide-ranging national security law. It allows Beijing to drastically tighten its grip on the financial hub. Traditionally, there would be anti-Beijing protests on every July 1st since the handover. But this year, Hong Kong police canceled the permission. They cited virus restrictions.
A group of Chinese women were seen dancing to Chinese Communist propaganda music in New York City. A local resident filmed the event, saying it was detestable, but he was surprised to see the video he shot showing up on Chinese state-owned media a few hours later.
It was the morning of June 22nd, and New York City resident Cai Guihua was in Flushing, a local Chinatown. While there, he spotted a group of Chinese women dancing to the beats of a Chinese Communist propaganda song. The lyrics of the song praises the CCP for being the savior of China. Cai filmed it and posted the video on Twitter. He wrote, They played the song No Communist Party, No New China and danced to it. They say it was to show their patriotism. He posted another criticism hours later, saying, "This group of foolish loyalists, it's really extremely disgusting to watch."
If you are a believer in the Chinese Communist Party, don't come to the U.S. This country does not want to get invaded by followers of communism.
But later that day, Tsai was surprised to see that multiple CCP mouthpieces, including People's Daily, published the exact same video on their Twitter accounts. Tsai was outraged that these outlets not only used his video without permission, but also omitted his commentary. He's planning to file a lawsuit against Chinese state media for copyright violations. And he also has a message to his fellow Chinese Americans.
So we came to this land of liberty. We should cherish ourselves, show respect, love, and gratitude. Don't be a conscienceless person.
Tsai says no Chinese Americans should pollute the U.S. with Chinese communist culture.
Still to come, an American track star sprints to first place at Olympic trials, but then tests positive for cannabis. Her Olympic hopes could be in danger. The automotive industry in Slovakia is bursting with innovations. A flying car was tested there by developers, completing a 35-minute intercity flight. Stay tuned to find out more.
It's just clear as day. The media, whether it's broadcast, cable, or print media, has become extremely biased. And I started looking online for alternative ways to get information. And I saw an ad for a free trial. And I looked at it and I said, Epoch Times. I mean, come on, this is end of days type of stuff. I mean, what are they going to be talking about here? And I said, well, it's a free trial. Let me dig in. Is it giving me both sides? Is it giving me an objective point of view here? I have looked for opportunities to see where they might be biased, and I don't find it. It has given me a level of trust in media that I didn't think I'd ever get back. I love the Epoch Times because it has renewed my faith in the idea that a reliable, responsible, non-biased source of information is available. And I can say that I love it because of that.
Get ready, world, for a whole new way to invest. Introducing the Unicorn Hunters.
We are talking about a cultural and economic shift.
A savvy group of investors whose only job is to provide an unvarnished assessment of who they think can become the next unicorn.
I am in and I'm going to invest.
We all know why we're here. We're here to meet the next unicorn opportunity.
This could be a game changer for a lot of families.
Together with you, they're on the hunt for the next unicorn.
The wait is finally over. Shen Yun returns to the stage with an all-new production filled with beauty, majesty, and a powerful message of hope. Discover the lost culture of ancient China. Discover this season, Shen Yun 2021.
Coming to the Palace Theater, July 24th and 25th. Tickets at shenyun.com/Stanford, 888-90-SHOWS.
And it's now confirmed American sprinter Sha'Carri Richardson will have to miss the 100-meter Olympic race after she tested positive for the use of marijuana.
A rising star in American track and field, Sha'Carri Richardson may have to put aside hopes for Olympic gold in Tokyo this summer. A source told Reuters that Richardson tested positive for cannabis during trials last month when she sprinted to victory in the 100-meter race. A failed drug test would void her results from the meet. According to another source, Jenna Prandini, who finished fourth, has already been asked to run the 100-meter for the U.S. in Tokyo. So far, no official confirmation from Richardson's agent, but the sprinter earlier tweeted out, quote, "I am human." Cannabis is banned by the World Anti-Doping Agency. A violation can carry with it a suspension of 4 years. But that can be reduced to 1 month if the athlete cooperates with their country's anti-doping organization to receive treatment. In theory, that would leave Richardson clear to race in the 4x100-meter relay on August 6th, if she is selected. Richardson has had her sights set on the 100-meter Olympic title, aiming to become the first American woman to win it in 25 years.
Kohei Jino was evicted from his Tokyo home for the 1964 Olympics and then again before the coming games. Saddened by loss and the officials' indifference, he can't help going back to the old neighborhood.
Kohei Jino was evicted from his family home so the 1964 Tokyo Olympic Stadium could be built. He was sad, but proud to contribute to a moment of national triumph. When it happened again 50 years later, though, it was hard not to see official indifference. Aged 80, he and his wife Yasuko were forced from a tight-knit public housing community in the shadow of the stadium, ahead of the 2020 Games, which start this month after a year's delay. Jino said the eviction of roughly 200 families, many of them elderly, came from nowhere. They received about 170,000 yen, or $1,500, which a Tokyo city official confirmed was standard. But it cost $9,000 to move.
The Olympics are being held a second time, and to be honest, there are painful feelings for those of us who lived there and had to leave our hometown. Why couldn't they have been a little more compassionate in their approach?
Jino's first family home burned down in World War II, so they moved just down the street, where he ran a tobacconist's shop. After their eviction for the 64 Games, he washed cars to make ends meet, and the couple lived in one tiny room with their 2 children. But in 1965, they were able to move back to the neighbourhood and reopen the tobacco shop, demolished after this footage was taken. There they stayed. Eviction again in 2016 was hard, he says, especially on Yasuko, who became lonely and depressed. She died in 2018. Now living with his son in western Tokyo, Jino visits the old neighbourhood every few months.
I was born here, I grew up here. When I look at the trees on Jingu-gayen, which haven't changed at all, I am filled with nostalgia and sadness at the same time.
Jino hadn't wanted the Olympics in Japan this time, thinking it too soon to host again. But despite their impact on his life, he says, he hopes they succeed.
Futuristic vehicles are turning science fiction into reality. This week, a company in Slovakia tested a flying car prototype, sending it soaring between 2 city airports. The roadworthy vehicle can be transformed into a plane within just a few minutes.
By extending its narrow folded wings and retractable tail, a 4-wheeled car transforms into an airplane in under 3 minutes. This is Aircar, a prototype flying car developed by Slovakian company Kleinvision. On Monday, Aircar completed a 35-minute test flight between 2 Slovak airports. The company founder and designer Stefan Klein drove it straight off the runway and into town. The intercity flight distance measured in at about 50 miles. The car has flown at an altitude of over 8,000 feet, reaching a maximum cruising speed of almost 120 miles per hour. The company said it was the car's 142nd successful landing. It's completed over 40 hours worth of test flights so far, including tests for stability and maneuverability. According to Kleinvision, Aircar's second prototype is expected to reach cruising speeds of almost 190 miles per hour.
If you're not sleeping well, there are many things you can do to help you get a good slumber. Let's hear a few of those strategies.
Welcome to Strong Mind and Body, I'm Gina Marie. You finally call it a night and get into bed for a dreamy and restful 8 hours. You try to relax, but all of a sudden your mind is in overdrive. It's rehashing the day, planning for tomorrow, next week, and next year. In short order, any thoughts of restful sleep have flown out the window. However, a few tweaks to your lifestyle and before bed rituals may be all you need. Here are our best tips. Number 1, make sleep a priority. If you are a super busy person, this may actually translate into putting sleep into your schedule. Number 2, do something relaxing such as reading a book, meditation, stretching, or a warm bath. These activities help you unwind, and over time your body will associate them with sleep. Number 3, finish eating 2 or 3 hours before you go to sleep. Digesting your food and sleeping don't mix. Also, avoid overstimulating food late in the day. Coffee, spicy foods, and alcohol can all play a role in sleep disturbances. Number 4, keep the room where you sleep cool, as feeling warm can interrupt your sleep. Number 5, be sure the room you sleep in is dark. Even just a little bit of a light is enough to wake you up. Number 6, step away from the computer, phone and TV screens at least an hour before you go to sleep. The light emitted from these screens is as bright as those used in seasonal light therapy lamps, which can keep you awake. Number 7, exercise during the day to help you sleep better. Just don't do strenuous workouts right before bed. Number 8, try to get sleep at around the same time every night. After a couple of weeks, your body will get the message that it's time to sleep and begin to feel tired at that time. Also, wake up at roughly the same time every day, including on the weekends. Number 9, meditate. If you are tossing and turning, try concentrating on your breathing. It's a little hypnotic and may help you fall asleep. Number 10, wind down before you actually get into bed. Stop working, watching TV, or any other activities that stimulate your mind. So how much sleep do you need? It actually depends on your age. Interestingly, the older you are, the less you need. Babies and small children need 12 to 17 hours. Teenagers need 8 to 10 hours. Adults under the age of 64 need 7 to 9 hours, and those over 65 need 7 or 8 hours. The bottom line is, by making sleep a health priority and switching things up a bit, you can set the stage for getting a better night's sleep.
That's all for now. Catch us again tonight at 6:30 Eastern. In New York City, I'm Kevin Hogan.
We have a new channel. Subscribe to us on YouTube at NTD News. Get the highlights of our news broadcast and the most important headlines that we curate especially for you.
Don't let YouTube decide what information you get. That's your choice. YouTube is deleting our videos and cuts you off from a source of honest reporting. Make sure you don't lose access to NTD's news content, and take a quick moment to subscribe to our newsletter so no matter what happens here, you'll keep your access to a trustworthy news source.